Hello, everyone. Hi, Jan. How are you? Hi, Rose. So good to be here. It's Deborah Hamilton, ADR, North Carolina. And of course, you are here for the MAAP community call. I'm sure everyone is running late. It's the holiday season, and so everyone is always running late. But today, since it's the holiday season, I thought I would talk about all those gadgets and gizmos that you can get for your pet so that you can keep track of them moving or them eating or them not being bored while you're not home, and get some of the input from all of you on what you do to keep your animals occupied while you're not home, or how you keep track of your pets if, God forbid, they were to get out. Excuse me. So I want to start off by checking in with Jan, because she's the only one here right now, and I'm thrilled. Jan, how's everything going with our boy Tonka?
He's great. He's doing really well. We had something really interesting done last week. We did had something called the emotional code done. Heard that done in people, but my vet, who's a traditional Chinese medicine vet, actually does it on dogs and cat, like pets, and so I had it done. So it was very interesting. And then she does acupuncture based on the results, and I think it's really helped his anxiety, which has been
troubling you for a few weeks now. So that is great to think outside of the box.
No, I think it really did help a little bit. I mean, you got to look at baby steps.
Yeah, don't look to eat the elephant all at once. Eat them piece by piece. That's the scary thing. Being able to find out what's going on, slow and sure, steady Eddie.
Yeah. But otherwise, everything is good. It's been very mild here, so that's kind of nice.
I know it's been very mild. I think it got up to 70 here today, so it was really terrible. My poor dog Junie was panting the whole time while we walked, and I didn't actually give him his last walk because I was talking to a guy who's doing a communication in veterinary medicine conference in Florence, Italy. So I thought, well, that would be a nice place to go. So we're working with that. I think I'll do a Why Do Pets Matter podcast. So don't forget, everyone, that if you want, listen to the podcast. It's been going gangbusters. I love the fact that you are bringing your dog to a veterinarian who's thinking broad based. I know that I did the same thing, and when one of my dogs, who is co-owned with someone else, had hemangiosarcoma, which is a horrible cancer that nobody ever gets out of alive, she went to a holistic vet, Karen Pope in New Jersey, and the holistic medication she gave really made him feel good and elongated his life. So I think there's a lot to be said when we're planning for the care of our pets to think outside the box. In fact, the vet from Italy was very funny when I spoke to him. He said, we have a lot of conflicts and conversations with our veterinarians here. He said, and I'm the director of the vet clinic. He said, so they call me every time there's a breakdown in communication. And he said, usually what I say is, this is what we think is wrong. This is what we can do to confirm whether or not what we think is wrong. And then we can decide from there where to go. And he said most of the younger vets just say, well, I think it's this, and then we have to do this test and this test and this test, and then we'll have to do this. And the clients get over informed. And he said, I find that really just taking small bites. So, right, Jan, we started at the beginning. Small bites of the elephant instead of one big bite of the elephant works so much better. Connie, so good to see you. You have been AWOL, but we are okay with that.
Well, I have been Wednesdays have been turning out to be disasters, and sorry that I'm a tad late. I had trouble somehow logging into my Zoom account, which was resolved. But at any rate, I have today completed, as you probably know, Casey and I went down to Chapman University, which is in Orange, California, in our Orange County, just south of where I live in LA County, to de-stress college students who are going through finals. And there were 11 dog and handler teams from our therapy dog group. there were, I cannot tell you how many hundreds of kids who came by, and all of us were absolutely swamped. We did this for 2 hours, but it was well worth it. But it was kind of overwhelming for some of the dogs. But at any rate, that's what I've been up to lately. A lot of therapy dog work.
Well, wonderful. And I want to put a plug in for the National Dog Show Therapy Dog Symposium, which was today. I was there from 10:30 in the morning until almost 5 o'clock at night. And the speakers were so phenomenal. I'm going to see if I can get some of them on, because I have to tell you, they were just talking about how to pick a therapy dog, how to actually interview, because most of these people train people to have therapy dogs, how to interview people, whether or not it's them who want to be therapy dog people, or whether their dog wants to be a therapy dog person. And that certain failures don't necessarily negate a dog's ability to be a therapy dog. You just have to pick and choose. So it really was this incredible discussion. I think there were 7 or 8 leaders in the field. The TPI, I think, American Association of Therapy Professionals International or something, was on. I apologize that I don't know it. I should know it because I was on for all day, but I'm a little brain fried. I have to tell you, it was the greatest program. And I'll have Rose put some information in the notes so the people who want to learn more about the National Dog Show Therapy Dog Symposium for next year can learn. It was online and in person today, so it was really a pretty fabulous program. And of course, I've been involved with them since 2019 when the first conference was held. And I spoke there about making a plan for your therapy dog. And I sat there and these people were talking about the wonderful dogs that they had. And I just wanted to jump in and ask, do you have a plan for your pet? Because now you spent all this time and effort training this dog to be a fabulous therapy dog. Do you have a plan for that dog, if the dog loves it, to continue or not, and what happens? So these are things that we really need to pay attention to and make plans for. So I'm gonna check in with Sally. How are the girls? And Jan tells me it's warm there.
It's warmer here than Phoenix, Arizona. And I just got a photo from my brother in Phoenix. He's actually at the Grand Canyon with snow all over his face, looking out, and he can't see the other side of the rim. You know, across the canyon, there's nothing, a cloud. And it's the same here. We are in a huge cloud, and the ticks are terrible.
Yeah.
The girls are being groomed tomorrow. I spoke with the groomer, and she said it is the worst she has seen the ticks all season.
Yeah, they got a few days of cold weather, so now they're trying to hitch a ride on anybody who walks by to get in, because they know winter is coming.
But the girls are great. They're taking a nap now, getting ready to be go to the beauty salon tomorrow. We have to get up at we got to be on the road by 7:30. So we'll let you know how it works out.
Oh, they'll be thrilled, not.
Oh yeah.
They are not beauty girls. They don't like to go to the beauty salon. They hate it. Well, they hated it when they were showing, and they really hate it now. So they were never, I mean, you could grind their nails then, and they've sort of pulled that away from us. But tonight, I wanted to make sure I talked about all the gadgets, because it's coming up to the holiday season. And if you want to get somebody a gift, or you want to get the dogs a gift, what is it? So Holly Carr, who was on last week, wrote to me and said, did you ever think about telling people about the trackers that you can put on your dogs to make sure you know where they are? So there are so many trackers on Amazon. If you Google pet trackers, I counted 12 different kinds, ones that are built into the collars, ones that are, perimeter. We were thinking about putting a perimeter fence in rather than the invisible fence. However, it works off a satellite, and it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 feet off. And my backyard isn't big enough for me to give them the old backyard of 4 acres was big enough to give them a 5 or 10 foot sway. Here, not so much. Junie would be zapped 3 times a day in different places. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. However, if you have a big piece of property, it is phenomenal because it works off GPS. It works off satellites. It also just has satellite whereabouts of where your dog is. And it also carries all that information. If God forbid something happens to you, if the dog has his GPS collar on, it'll say, in the event of an emergency, call Connie Kohler, call Sally Anderson, call Jan Jeremias, because it's right there. All that information that's in your MAAP plan will be transferred into the database of this, of this tracker. Now, of course, most of us have microchips in our dogs. So I want everyone today to recognize that you have to update the information on the microchip, at least check it every year, because I know that the girls probably still have my name as their original owner, although I think I've changed them over to Sally, but I'm going to make sure that they are updated, and also to make sure it hasn't moved, because a lot of veterinarians don't ever check the chip after they place the chip. And for good breeders, I chip my puppies before they leave, and I register them with the chip company in my name. And then I give all the information to the new owners and say, if you'd like to, put your name on the chip, go right ahead. And I want to make sure that my name always remains on the chip as the secondary person. So it's really important for you to check on the chip. So this has raised a lot of questions. I'll let everyone who's listening know. So first, Connie, what's your question?
Well, actually, I wanted to make a comment that a couple of things on GPS, having spent 30 years in aerospace. I cannot tell you the actual reason why, but let's just say that any civilian GPS is not completely accurate. That's all I'll say. So you have to be prepared for the fact that if in your car GPS, you may have noticed this driving, you don't land exactly on the address, within several hundred feet that your GPS says when you have arrived at your destination. Same with any kind of a GPS aided tracker with a dog. So if the dog is lost, or even, if you just let your dog out on your huge property and you want to find out exactly where he or she is, you may not get a really precise location. You will get a vicinity. Right. The second thing is with microchips, they can move in the body. And I have actually had that experience with my girl Bammy, who is now an angel. I microchip all my pups when they are, getting their vaccinations as pups. And that little microchip, because it's injected, can move in the body. And you discover this years later when you go in to take your dog in for surgery and they're looking, to scan the number, and your dog's never been microchipped, and you're going, what? So at any rate, just be aware that even if your dog has been microchipped, you may have to use the scanner in various parts of the body to actually pick the chip up.
Absolutely. And before I go to you, Jan, I'm just going to say that the other thing that happens with microchips, not very often, but I've had 2 dogs that have had a reaction to it, and not a reaction when they're baby puppies, but a reaction when they're older, when their hormones are shifting, if they've been spayed or altered. And it seems that the body's, trying to heal or do whatever, and it rejects it. And then you get this big lump between their shoulder blades, or if it's migrated, it's a big lump somewhere. And then when they go in, they find that it was the microchip. So just recognize that when you place your dog or your puppy with people, target where it is, tell them when they go to the vet to make sure they look for the microchip, to make sure it's there, make sure where it landed, because I know where we placed it, where it landed, hopefully is the same place, but who knows, as Connie said, and make sure it's working and it's present, and then you'll know everything about it. And then it'll, of course, also go on your veterinarian's file. Jan.
As you were talking, Deborah, I didn't realize that. So can you put multiple names on a chip? So thinking, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. And so now it just gives me another place I need to update because you said that, because I thought that I mean, they have me down as the contact, but
You can,
Yeah, so
for
you
instance,
want-
if you have a co-owner, you can put the co-owner or you can put a backup.
well,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. I didn't realize you could put a backup.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. That's why my name, I tell the chip company that they can always put me to the secondary name, but they can never remove me because I want to know where my dog is. If it gets lost, I know. So the girls will be called, but they can never remove me. And I usually will make sure that the payments are made on the chips as well, because it's cheap and it's worth it for me to keep them active. So that's what I do as well, because it makes sure I make sure. So we're talking tonight about different gizmos and gadgets that you can get for your dogs to make sure you can know where they are and also know who the people are who are going to be your caregivers. So Mia, nice to see you for the first time. This is the MAAP community call where we talk about how to make a plan for your pet, how to address their needs, how to appoint caregivers, and how to publish that plan so that people know exactly what you want to do. And tonight we're talking about microchips, if your dog has a microchip or cat, and also GPS and the vagaries of GPS. It's better than nothing. However, it could be 100, 200, 500 yards off, which was why we didn't put it in as a fence here in North Carolina, because I only had an acre. So Mia, if you want, you can introduce yourself, and I'll go around and have everyone introduce themselves quickly again, so you get to know everyone who's on the call tonight. Tell me where you're from and your pets.
Hi, my name is Mia. I live in New Jersey and we have 3 standard poodles.
Oh, wonderful. Lovely. And what are their names? I'll try to remember.
Bachi,
Bachi,
Chelsea, and Charlie.
Bachi, Chelsea, and Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
I think I
Lots
might
of
remember those.
CH sounds.
Yeah, I think I might remember those. So Connie, why don't you introduce yourself to Mia?
Mia, I'm Connie Kohler. I'm from Rancho Palos Verdes, California, which is in the metro LA area. And I have 2 soft-coated Wheaten Terriers, mother and son. They are both, well, one is a definitely retired show dog. The other is semi-retired, and they have multiple titles at the other end of their name too. So they're very active.
And Connie told us today that she went to the university, and I know
to Chapman University
Chapman
here
University.
in Orange County to do therapy work for kids who are stressed out going through finals.
So perfect. So Jan, how about Tonka? Introduce yourself. Oops, I gave the name of your dog. See, I try to remember.
Okay, but Mia and I know each other really well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because Mia's the co-author on my book. So
Oh, wonderful. Mia, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
But we won't let you introduce yourself. For the people who are listening, we're just gonna, no, go right ahead, Jan.
Okay. I'm Jan Jeremias, and I'm here with my canine companion, my buddy Tonka. And I love being a part of this community. Yeah.
I know it's been so fun. And Sally, last but not least, because you know you have red dogs and those are perfect. Sorry, guys, but well, you have the other red dog, right, Connie? And
Irish.
And maybe Mia has red poodles too. So and Jan, I think that Tonka wants to be red. Go ahead, Sal.
My name is Sally Anderson Bruce, and I'm actually a photographer. I do a lot of pet pharmaceutical packaging, and I co-own 2 dogs with Deborah, a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old Irish setter, and they are basically spoiled rotten, but
Yes.
That's okay. You know, we're here in Connecticut and it's getting chilly, so they're wrapped up in quilts right out of the clothing dryer.
I know. I just want to go live at Sally's. I'm just telling you that now. I want to live at Sally's. So Mia, the MAAP community meets every Wednesday. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad Jan invited you. Tonight, we're going to talk about microchipping and what you should know, and also GPS. So we did a little bit at the beginning, but we will repeat it because you just got here. So GPS is a collar that your dog wears. You can find about 100 of them. Well, maybe not 100, but about 20 different ones on Amazon. And Connie pointed out, since she's an aerospace engineer by trade, that they are good to a point. You might be 100 yards off, 500 yards off of where the dog is. It's better than nothing, but the GPS doesn't necessarily pinpoint, as we know from driving, right? Connie, you said, from driving, when you get in front of the house, you might not be in front of the house. You might be down the street. I remember in Bedford, somebody made the turn where they told him to turn, and he went on the railroad tracks, which then the train hit the car, and he wasn't in it, thank God, but it was a big mess. So yeah, don't think that they're going to be exactly there. And also, I don't know, if you have your dog's microchip, but you should really check where the microchip is when you go into the vet to make sure that it's where it's supposed to be. Connie told us that one of her dogs, it had migrated. And so when they were looking for it pre-surgery, they said, she's never been microchipped. And Connie said, of course she has, but it had migrated. So we should always know where our chips are. We should always know the numbers to our chips. And there are always 2 names on a chip. So if you only have your name on the chip, you're missing an opportunity, if you don't pick up the phone when they call you, to have someone else pick up the phone when they call if your dog gets lost. And I have a perfect opportunity to share that one of my dogs who lives in Richfield, Connecticut, Lisa and John, Sally, with Dylan. Dylan got out while Lisa and John were on a cruise, and Lisa's mom was watching. And the neighbor down the street caught him and put him in the garage and called ASPCA, who came and wanded him. And they called Lisa, and she didn't answer her phone because she's in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific on a beautiful cruise. But then the second name on the chip was me. And they said, we have your dog. And I said, okay, where do you have my dog? And they said, Richfield, Connecticut. I said, I know exactly whose dog that is. And I called immediately, and Lisa's mother was crazy with fear because she had lost the dog. And we were able to reunite the dog in about 15 minutes because Animal Care and Control was right down the street at the guy's house who had kept the dog in the garage. So the dog got home really quickly. So anyone who has a microchip, just take advantage of the fact that you can put another name on. As breeders, I can only speak for myself, but as breeders, I put myself on the microchip, and I tell the microchip company that I can never be removed. You can add, but I can never be removed, because I always want something like that happened, that they'll always call me and I'll know who lives in New Milford. I'll know who lives in California. I'll know who lives, so I can always call the people or make sure the dog is taken care of until I can catch up with people. So those are the things that I really wanted to chat about. Oh my God, it's 6:54 already. How does that happen? Mia, let me ask you your thoughts on coming here. What were you hoping for? And I'm more than happy to go through what MAAP stands for.
I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what to expect. So I had an open mind, I suppose.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that we've given you a little bit of tidbit information. The reason I started these calls is because people don't necessarily write down the plans for their pets in a way that they can be used easily by emergency medical people or police in the event that something happens to you and your dogs are in the house, or something happens to you, the dogs are in the car. There always needs to be some documentation that says, in the event of an emergency. So I tell everyone who comes for the first time tonight, when you hang up, you need to get a 3x5 card out and say, in case of an emergency, please call, my number, my husband's number, and 2 other people that can say, no, I know what to do with her pets. Because if you're in your car in a car accident, or you're home and something occurs, the protocol is for the police or EMS to call Animal Care and Control to take your dogs. I don't know if you live alone or live with a bunch of kids and a husband and everybody else like me. However, if you're living alone, you really need to make sure you have this document where it can be seen. Now, some people hate the fact that they're putting people's telephone numbers, on the back door or on the refrigerator. So I go, well, that's fine. Then just say, in case of an emergency, dog care information is in the yellow file, purple file, green file, blue file, next to the refrigerator. I hate to put it in a drawer because that means they have to take time to find it. if it's out somewhere where it's easy. And then in that file is the name and telephone number of at least 3 people, and only one can be a family member, that they can call. The other thing we always suggest is the nosy neighbor. So if you have a really nosy neighbor who knows everything about everything in your neighborhood, make sure you let them know who the people are who are going to take care of your pets, because they'll be the ones out talking to the police or the EMS, and will say, listen, I know that Mia has the dog care set up. I have this piece of paper, the same 4 numbers that are in the purple file. And I know who they are, and I know they're going to come and take care of the dogs, leave the dogs in the house. Because during COVID, what happened was people weren't answering their phones because they happened to be on ventilators. So their dogs were being removed from the home. And then they were put in a shelter for the 3 to 5 days, animal care and control shelter for 3 to 5 days. They were calling you, you were on a ventilator, you weren't answering the phone. So in terms of releasing the dogs to rescues to be adopted, if they can't get you, they have the power to release the dogs to a rescue to be adopted. And if your dog is adopted, you can't get it back. Very smart attorneys have written really great rescue contracts that say that the dog has been released. We couldn't find the owner, so we figured it was, not owned, or they didn't care because they didn't call us back. And so we gave it to the rescue with all the rights and responsibilities of allowing it to be adopted. So we all know we want our dogs back. So this is the best way to do it, is to make sure that you put some documentation, very visible, that either says all my information's in the yellow, purple, green, blue file, or it's just right up there on a 3x5 card, yellow, card, and at least 2 names, yours and someone else's. I know that when Susan is here, she doesn't have a lot of support in the neighborhood. She's working on it. So that's always a problem. But if you have 2 or 3 people, it's great to make sure that you call them and you say, hey, listen, I listened to this woman on Wednesday night. She got me crazy. And so can I put your name down in the event something happens to me, that you'll, come in and let the dogs outside and give them water and give them food. And, they'll say, sure, no problem. And I'll tell you now, everyone here, I think, has heard this. Maybe Jan hasn't, but during COVID, I had moved and I didn't have my support network next to me. So I walked around to everyone with a dog. And I put a 3x5 card in their post box and said, listen, in case of an emergency, I live at 8 Brookside Place and my telephone number is this. And if you need somebody to care for your dog, give me a call. And every single person that I gave the card to came to me and said, we never even thought of that, but thank you. And we'll do the same for you, which was my ulterior motive. I will be completely honest and above board. That was my ulterior motive, was to find somebody who would come take care of my dogs if I was hauled off. So this is the most important piece of the MAAP plan, is to make sure that you have that go-to person in the event something happens to you. And then, there's so much more, but I don't want to keep everybody much later because it's tough. Anything now that I've, probably fried your brain and hit you with a fire hose, any burning questions?
No, I thank you for all this great information.
Well, the last thing I'll say, of course, everyone here knows this, so this will be only new to you. Don't put all of your pet plans in a will and think you're done. Because if you're not dead, none of those plans come to fruition. So we speak about the 9 Ds. I have 9 Ds now, guys, 9 of them, and I hope I remember them all. So there's death, there's divorce, disability, delay, disaster, dementia, deployment, domestic violence, new, and I think I didn't say disease. So all of those things can happen, and only death will trigger all of your plans in your will. But if you break a leg, or if you are part of, if you are delayed by an airplane, or a disaster is coming, you're going to need the information to be prevalent and available. We talk about it, Connie lives in Fire Central. So she has people up and down the coast that she can go to in the event, close by or far away, that the fire comes down the mountain. Jan lives in Connecticut, so she's got snow. Sally lives in Connecticut. She has snow, sometimes hurricanes as well for both of them. And if you're in New Jersey, you have snow and hurricanes. So you lose electricity or you have to evacuate, always knowing, having a plan about where you're going to go is really, really important. So I hope you'll come back and join us. This is a fun crew. Last check-ins, of course. Connie, I'm going to start with you. What's your takeaway tonight, beside the fact that that these gadgets are something that you probably wouldn't get because you're always ahead of the curve with other things?
Well, I wouldn't say that. And thank you for calling me an aerospace engineer. I was not an engineer. I do not have an engineering degree. I'm a trained economist, but I was a program manager of a very, very large Navy strike fighter program for 10 years. So I was, firmly in the industry. But at any rate, my takeaway tonight is that while there are, and obviously I'm a great believer in science and technology and its marvels, one must always be aware of the risks associated with any type of technology that you are using to identify and or track your animal if it is lost. And all of them have, failure rates. And to my concern, and we really didn't talk about this, is if your dog is microchipped and picked up by an animal care and control agency of your local or county government, having been rescue chair of my local breed club and dealing with 9 counties in Southern California during that tenure, I can tell you that unfortunately those animal control agencies are pretty clueless about a lot of stuff. And they will simply scan in one spot on the animal and say, oh, I can't find a microchip. The dog isn't microchipped. And your dog may perfectly well be microchipped and you'll never get it back. Even though you have all the information registered, with Avid or whoever your microchip provider is, and you'll never get your dog back. So be aware that if your dog is lost and you contact a shelter, you need to tell them in no uncertain terms the dog is microchipped, provide the number and the information, and just say you need to scan all over that dog's body if there is a potential match for the information I have given you. So I would caution everyone about that.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about that when we talked about microchipping. Not only might the microchip migrate, but if someone picks up your dog in the street and doesn't advise someone that they picked the dog up in the street,
right,
there is no responsibility for your veterinarian or their veterinarian to scan the dog. Now, if it's your veterinarian, they might notice that it is Bammy, they might notice, or Patsy, or Casey. But if it's not your veterinarian and the person comes in and says, this is my dog, there is no responsibility or requirement for a vet to scan a dog. And I will tell you that it's against the vet client patient relationship called the VCPR for them to scan a dog that someone says, or a cat that someone says, I found this dog. Now the vet can ask if they'd like to see if there's a chip in the dog to see if they can return it. But if the client refuses, they cannot scan that dog. And if they get this altruistic means of, I've got to scan it because I think, the dog is lost or whatever, they can be in violation of the VCPR. They can have their license suspended. So they're pretty reluctant to say, I'm going to scan the dog, even though you said no. I just had a conversation with Beverly Jones, who's an attorney for the ASPCA in New York City. And I said, we should teach veterinarians that they should ask, would you like me to scan it? If the person said, I found this dog, you should ask if they scan it. And if they say no, say, well, why don't I do this? I'll scan it, I'll get the number, I'll get the company, and I'll give the information to you. And it's up to you what you do with it. But remember, if this was your dog, you'd want to know that it was still alive. Or if this was your cat, you'd want to know. And hopefully you'll be playing to their good nature to call and find out who the dog belonged to. However, that's not necessarily going to happen. So if you have your dogs microchipped, fabulous, wonderful, but two things occur. One is it migrates, so they might not find it. So make sure you ask them to check all over, not just where they typically find microchips. And B, recognize that if the person who finds your dog or cat goes to the vet and doesn't allow the vet to scan the dog or cat, then the microchip won't be found. So that's why we really need to be a little vigilant on what we do with our pets. Jan, what's your takeaway?
So that even with that vigilance, like that part of what we're saying, that I guess that to me, there's never ever absolutely any substitute for, identification and collars and whatnot.
Yep.
On pets. Because no matter what happens, I mean, hopefully if you inscribe names on collars and then have tags and double reinforcement, then the likelihood that they'll be reunited with you is, so much increased.
Right. Yep. It's scary because we think, well, I have an Irish setter and everybody thinks he's really handsome. And who knows, things are a little different now. So you just have to be really vigilant about where your dogs are and who's with your dogs, and just make sure that, as we said earlier, I don't know, Mia, if you were here, if you do have a microchip in your dog, make sure it's scanned by your vet every year to make sure it's where it's supposed to be and the information on it is up to date. Sally, what's your takeaway, honey?
Well, I'm actually, think of low tech also, as soon as that dog's gone, make Xeroxes, great photos and a phone number, put them up all over the place. And also there's a phone call service in Connecticut. I mean, I get calls all the time, lost dog, description, call this number. So I think high tech's great. But driving around asking neighbors, have you seen an elderly red dog? And oh, yes, as a matter of fact, I have had 3 young Irish setters brought to my house that have run away. And they said, we know you have Irish setters. Is this your dog? And I go, I'll take the dog. And I take it in. And then I do find out where the dog belongs. And sometimes they're 10 miles away from home.
Yeah.
And I just say, I'll take the dog. And then I do find out where the dog lives. I'm like, how could they mistake this dog for my dog? But it's a red dog. So I think also low tech,
Yep.
Is there a great photo of your dog, full body and the face and up on, trees and around the neighborhood and just spread the word.
I have to tell you that is so important, and make sure you get recent photos of your dogs. And for those of us who show our dogs, don't worry about the collar ridge in their neck. If they're going to lose because they have a collar ridge in their neck, then you're hanging on too tight to those points, because it's not, when you bathe them, it rinses out. Usually if you towel them, it rinses out. So, the collar ridge, it's so important. There are some questions whether or not you want to have your dog wear a collar in a crate. And I err on the side of leaving the collar on in their crates. It's it's a buckle collar, a snap collar, not a buckle collar, simply because, well, I'm in the car, so I'm hopefully going to be aware of the fact that they hung themselves up. But I just, God forbid, if I have an accident and something happens, I have these 400-year-old crates called 5Ts that Connie probably knows very well, that weigh about 100 pounds. But if I roll or somebody hits my car will disintegrate around these crates, as opposed to my dogs disintegrating from the crates. So it's really important. I'm so glad you're here, Mia. Do you want to say anything or anything? We're gonna walk away, but just wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity to tell us that we really scared the shit out of you. I apologize.
Yeah, very much. No, thank you very, very much for all your attention.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we hope you join us again. It's a great group. This is Deborah Hamilton, and you are at the MAAP community call. And until next week, kiss Tonka, kiss Casey and Miss Patsy, kiss Roxy and Athena, and kiss Bachi, Chelsea, and Charlie. So I get like 75 points tonight. Wow. Love you
That's
guys.
excellent.
Take care.